Hey guys, this is Miss Briscoe here. So today what you're going to be working on is you're going to be working on a little bit of a review because we are going to be taking the FSA soon and because we have been doing math all year long, I wanted to give you the chance to review some of the earlier chapters that we worked on earlier in the year. And so we're going to start with chapter 1, which was place value and multiplication. So this is going to be a review of things that you've already learned, but we're going to go ahead and go over a couple of things in this video, and then you're going to have the chance to practice it on your own. So your practice is going to be very similar to what we go over in our video today. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and let me know. So we're going to be looking at place value and place value patterns at first. And so this is what we learned about earlier in the year, that we have numbers that can be 10 times as much as other numbers and numbers that are 1/10, which means that they're 10 times less than another number. So if we're looking at the sequence of events for a number, say we have the number 30. Okay. If you were to do 10 times as much, it would be 300. And 300, 10 times as much as 300, is 3,000. So if we're looking at this number, and this is our middle of the road number, 3,000 is 10 times as much as 300. And 30 is 1/10 of 300. And if you notice, if you're going 10 times as much, we are adding a 0. And if we are 1/10 of as much, we are subtracting a 0. So that's an easy rule for you to follow when doing charts like this or when questions are asked. So for the number 10, a number that is 10 times as much as the number 10, remember, you're just adding a 0, and that is 100. Because if I were to multiply 10 times 10, that means I would get 100. So a number that is 1/10 of 10, remember we're just subtracting a 0, which would be 1. Because if I were to divide 10 by 10, I would get 1. That's another way for you to think about these types of problems. So 10 times as much as 3,000. So what that means is I have 3 zeros for 3,000. I'm just going to add a 0 because I'm multiplying it by 10, so I'd have 30,000. And 1/10 of 3,000, well, I would take away 1 0, so I should only have 2 zeros, which would be 300. Same thing for 800. I have 2 zeros in 800. So for a number that is 10 times as much as 800, I would add a 0. And a number that is 1/10 of 800, I would take away a 0 and I would get 80. 50, 10 times as much would be 500. I'm adding a 0. 1/10 of 50 would be 5. So you could always check your work. And 3,000 times 10 would be 30,000. 800 times 10 would be 8,000. 50 times 10 would be 500. 3,000 divided by 10 would be 300. 800 divided by 10 would be 80, and 50 divided by 10 would be 5. So that is how you would complete a chart like this. This next section is complete the sentence. 4,000 is blank times as much as 4. So if I had the number 4 and I added 3 zeros, well, 4 times 1 is 4. So I know that my beginning number is going to be 1. And if I added 3 zeros, that means 4 is 1,000 times 4,000. Because 4 times 1,000 equals 4,000. And down here for 600, Well, to get from 600 to 6, I only had to multiply by 1 using mental math, and I have 2 zeros here, so that means that 6 is 100 times. That's how you get 600. So that's a little bit of our place value and pattern. So we're going to move on and talk about the value of the underlined digit. Now there is what digit is in the hundreds place, and that's where you would just say 4. But when we're talking about the value of a digit, that means how much is that digit worth? And so if I'm looking at number 4 here, they want to know what is the value of the digit in the underlined digit of 9. Well, that 9 is in the 10,000s place. So that means that the value of that 9 is 90,000. Because if I were to take 9 and multiply it by 10,000, I would get 90,000. Same thing over here. What is the value of the 3? Well, the 3 is in the 100 millions place. So the value of that 3 is 300 millions. So there's a difference between the value and the digit. So keep that in mind. Now, there are ways that we can write out numbers. We have word form, we have expanded form, and we have standard form. And so I'm going to show you those 3 different ways. So the first way is word form, which was given to us here, 7,020,032. The second way is standard form, where you're just going to write out standard form. So I would need to write out 7,020,032. So let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. There we go. So this is 7,020,032. Another way is to write it out in expanded form. And the way that we would write it out in expanded form is you would want to say, okay, I have 7 million plus 20,000 plus 30 plus 2. So that is writing it out in expanded form. And the last way that we could write out a problem like this is we could write it out in expanded form a different way. There's 2 different ways that we could do expanded form. And so I'm going to show you the last way. Let me go ahead and get this here. So what we would say is we would say, okay, I have 7 times 1 million plus I have 2 times 10,000 plus I have 3 times 10 plus I have 2 times 1. And so those are the 2 different ways that you can write out expanded form. You can multiply each digit times its value, or you can write out the value of each digit. Then when we move on to exponents, exponents was another thing that we had in our place value. And so when we're dealing with exponents, it's just putting numbers in the value of 10. So placing them in that value. And so we're going to talk about that. So exponents are just ways of showing a large value and shrinking it down so you don't have to write out so many zeros with numbers. So for each 10 that you have, your exponent is going to be given 1. So for example, 10 times 10, I would write that as 10 to the second. And so this 2 is what you would call an exponent. It tells me how the value of the 10. So 10 times 10 is 100. Well, this would be 10 to the second, or the second power of 10. And so this really would just equal 100. And you would write it, if you were to write it in word form, you could just write 10 to the second power, or the second power of 10. You could write it either way. And so that is an exponent. That's how we would look at exponents. So if we were to come down, we can complete patterns using mental math and exponents. So mental math is, we all know what 7 times 10 equals. So 7 times 10 equals 70. So we can use that mental math to help us solve this. So if we look at this first one, it shows 7 times 10 to the 0. Well, 10 to the 0 equals 1. There is no 10 times 10, it's just 1. So 7 times 1 equals 7. And then if we come down to the next slide, we have 7 times 10 to the first power. Well, 10 to the first power just equals 10, so 7 times 10 equals 70. Then we have 7 to the second power. Well, 7 times 10 equals 70, and 10 to the second power is 100. So 7 times 100 equals 700. And then we have 7 times 10 to the third power. Well, 10 to the third power equals 1,000. 7 times 1,000 equals 7,000. And our last one is 7 times 10 to the fourth power. Well, 10 to the fourth power is 10,000. Well, 7 times 10,000 is 70,000. So if you can see, as the exponent goes up by 1, the 0 in our number goes up by 1. Okay, and so now we can play with our exponents here, the same type of pattern. So we know that 3 times 7 equals 21. So I want to know what 3 times 7 to the 10th, the first power of 10 equals. Well, the first power of 10 is just 10. So 7 times 3 is 21, and we're going to multiply that by 10. That equals 210. And then if I look at my second number, I'm doing 3 times 7 again, which equals 21. And 10 to the second power equals 100. So 21 times 100 equals 2100. We're just using mental math. Again, I'm doing 3 times 7, which equals 21. 10 to the third power, which equals 1,000. And 21 times 1,000 equals 21,000. So that's just the pattern that you're using to help you solve it in mental math. We have another pattern down below. So we have 5 times 4. Well, 5 times 4 equals 20. So we know that each of these is 20. If I would write 20 over the 5 times 4, because I know that 5 times 4 equals 20, so all I'm doing is replacing my 5 times 4 with 20. So what I need to do is I need to figure out, okay, I have 10 because I need to put my power here. So I need to figure out what power of 10 am I multiplying. So 20 times 10 would equal 200. So that means that this would just be 10 to the first power. 20 times what equals 2,000? Well, I have 1 0 here. So I need to make up 2 zeros here. So that means it would be 10 to the second power. And then 20 times what equals 20,000? Well, I'm having 1 0 here that's going to apply to my mental math. So that means I need to add 3 zeros. So that means it would be 10 to the third. And so that's how you'd use mental math to come up with your exponents. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solve our last problem where there's no pattern to help us. We just have to figure it out on our own. So we need to think to ourselves, what is 7 times 8? Because I need to figure out what 7 times 8 is so that I can be able to add my exponent in to get what it is using mental math. And I know that 7 times 8 is 56. So 7 times 8 is 56. And I know that 10 to the fourth would just be written out 10 with 4 zeros. So it would be 10,000. 10 to the fourth is 10,000. So now what I need to do is I need to use mental math, and I need to multiply 56 times 10,000. So I'm going to write my 56, and I'm just going to add 4 zeros, because using mental math, 56 times 1 is 56, and then add my 4 zeros. So 56 times 10,000 equals 560,000. So that is using our place value and mental math to help us solve these types of problems. So then if we were to move on, you will be working on multiplication next week. So look for the review video and assignment for multiplication. We're going to be going over double-digit multiplication and single-digit multiplication problem solving, as well as order of operations and evaluating expressions. So you can pause this video, you can rewind it as much as you need to be able to review these topics in math. And then down below you're going to find the review practice packet that you need to complete for today's math lesson. Have a great day.